Welcome to the Gen AI podcast, where the future meets fun and tech talk trends. Get ready to dive into the world of artificial intelligence like never before. Your hosts, Dale, Alan, Greg, and Val, are about to take you on a wild ride through the AI universe. So, buckle up, tune in, and let the AI adventure begin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Gen AI podcast. It's amazing to be on another episode 18. I think we're almost a year in, Al, from when we started this up. So towards the end of this
No
year,
way.
Yeah, it will be 12 months.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, and it's been exciting and interesting as well because a lot has happened over this period of time, and I think it's good to potentially reflect and see the journey that not just this podcast has been on, but how AI and tech has journeyed to date. But let's start with current status, because I know, well, actually, before we start with current status, it would be remiss of us not to mention Val.
Oh yeah, we have to do at least 1 minute of trolling Val at the beginning of every episode, right?
Absolutely. So the latest is he's held true to what you said on the last episode, that he will join the next one, and this is the case still, I believe.
Yeah, he's still joining the next one.
Yeah, so he will be joining the next one, apparently, allegedly. But we do have also Greg, who's missing in action. So we send our love to you as well, Greg. Hope you're enjoying your travels.
Kidnapped by Val?
Perhaps they're in the same location. Parallel universe. Any of us that watch The Umbrella Company, perhaps they're in a different timeline.
Yeah.
No, good fun. But let's start with the market when it comes to AI, because I think you were chatting offline and you were saying, it's very, very interesting what's happening there, and you have some strong opinions on what's happening and what should be happening and how to view it. So, what's happening in the market?
So, first I have to put some legal disclaimers in front. I own equity positions in Google, Microsoft, Meta, Nvidia, and I think that's it for the companies that we're going to cover today. Oh, Intel. But I don't talk about my finance background a lot, but I spent 8 years in quantitative trading, right? And one of the things that seems odd to me right now is it's not odd. I mean, it's part of the course, but like the jitteriness of the market. So people are literally freaking out, right? Like Forbes published an article like 2 or 3 days ago. Could Nvidia go back down to $40, right? And for context, I just think everybody's gone insane. Like, we have this saying, the market can stay crazy more than you can stay liquid. So still be careful with your positions. But everybody's just gone absolutely mental with expectations. Like, oh yeah, this is a new technology that has existed for has been commercialized really for like a year and a half in many places, and they're expecting radical changes to the earning calls of Google, right? And they're like, oh yeah, Gen AI revenue is not Google's biggest revenue yet. I'm like, yeah, no wonder, right? So that's one.
And if we pause there, sorry, I'm just intrigued, because is this perhaps the age of instant gratification that sort of perhaps social media over the past decade or so has instilled in us, that we want things fast and we're more impatient and we want
markets have always kind of been that way. Okay. I don't think, like, even in the 1920s, like, publicly traded markets have always been this way, right?
Right.
And it is impatience and unrealistic expectation combined with, I'm gonna, for lack of a better word, call it just entitlement and protagonist syndrome is something that plagues all humans, presence included, right? So, and that just reflects in the markets. Like equity markets, for sure, are effectively a reflection of human nature in the way they move, right? And that's why basically it's a random walk, because humans, despite what you think, are not as rational as one might expect. I'll stop being depressing about humans, but this is the thing, right? Like, and I don't think, fund managers, quantitative traders are a little bit more numbers based and a little bit more rational, just because they're not the ones doing the trading, right? It's the algorithms that they design to do the trading. But for sure, bankers, brokers, like, they're not different. If anything, being in fast moving markets just makes those traits worse. And you can see this like in August, and like August is always a fun time to watch the markets, because two things happen, right? A lot of people go on holiday.
Mm-hmm.
So with the expectation that like everybody else is on holiday, so nothing's going to happen in the markets. So in a sense, like the B teams are in charge, right? So all of a sudden you've got, the junior analyst who's babysitting a $10 billion portfolio. And then as soon as something moves, right, they basically have one job. Don't lose all the money until the main analyst comes back, right? The main trader comes back. So as soon as something moves a little bit because of a little bit of news, they're going to freak out and sell off. And ironically, that creates the sell-off, right? And that's exactly what happened in August to Nvidia when it went back down to just under 100 and then immediately back up. Right? And it happens around Fed earnings, all that kind of stuff. It is funny, like if you look at the Nvidia earnings call, and sorry, this is turning into a finance podcast, so maybe I should stop
That's AI
after
related.
this. Yeah, I guess. But if you look at the Nvidia earnings call, like this is a company that has again smashed expectations, right? Like, so we're talking about a company that had, I don't know, something along the lines of like 8 billion in revenue quarterly a couple of years ago, right? They issued guidance that I don't know the exact numbers, but they were gonna hit 29 for Q2 24, and they hit 30 and a bit, right? So they're just over $1 billion above expectation in a quarter, right? The free cash keeps piling up. They're basically like sitting on mountains of money. And that was not enough, right? People sold. Like there's a lot of people that are just waiting for not even bad news, right? Like, and this is what happens when you have people that, this part of the strategy is called take profit. So if you have something that's like done, I don't know, 20x in 2 years, you're basically trying to call the top, right? And by trying to call the top, it kind of ends up being a self-fulfilling prophecy where that becomes a top, unless someone else believes that dip is an opportunity to buy, which is what happened in August, right?
Yeah.
Because anyone with their head screwed on realized that going back to 99 and, like 2 trillion-ish for literally the only company that manufactures chips that anybody uses to train models, in a time when all the big companies are quadrupling their investment in data centers, at a time when like literally Elon Musk started a company and bought 100,000 GPUs, like that is mental, right? Like that's a buying opportunity, because this is an organization that A is not going away, and B is not going to slow down, right? Like the fact that instead of doubling every quarter, it just went up 20%. I mean, come on. you know? And like Jensen said it himself. He did an interview on Bloomberg just after where he was like, I just don't understand it. I thought I was clear that, especially like Blackwell's going to get released soon. And he said, like, we're going to have several billion of new revenue from Blackwell chips at the end of 2024, right? So, like, that's pretty strong guidance, if you ask me.
Yeah. Is this a reflection, the jitteriness, as you've put it, a reflection of where AI currently sits in people's minds? Because if we rewind, the journey of this podcast, when he kind of started, there was this hype, right? Let's call it that, around particularly ChatGPT. And I think most people are sort of au fait with using it now. And it feels like, I think I was explaining to you before we would record, in my mind, my view, there's this AI journey through ChatGPT that people have gone on, and I think as it's got a bit more technical, because you get different levels of understanding, and as the train's gone along, at certain stations people have got off, and at certain junctions people have diverged off different tracks. And so now all of a sudden two things happen, because people are getting off because it's getting a bit more technical, but also two, because there's different tracks that people have gone off to get more technical. They're not sure which one to stay on with. And so I just wonder, are we at a point where those markets are potentially reflecting what's happening with the general public's view of AI and the use of it and the interest of it? And now, as you say, we're just waiting for, okay, what is the next big product idea, application, use case for AI?
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's difficult, right? Because we're trying to post rationalize an entire planet's behavior, right?
Yeah. Which is fine for me and you, but maybe not for the listeners.
Let's see. So, I mean, the hype is still there, right? Like, I mean, I see it every day in the things that we plan to build myself. That, like, we are gonna have, in a sense, we already do have software that can do things that were unthinkable 3 years ago, but that is continuing to be the trend, right? The thing that isn't the trend, which I also see, a little bit less directly, because, like, our sales team see it more than I do, is that humans are gonna take a while to adapt to this, right? Even in simple terms of, like, stuff like procurement, right? Organizations really don't know how to procure AI. That adds to the sales cycles. There are some, right? There are some that actually are better at it than others, and those are the ones that are going to stand out, and that may give them a competitive advantage, right? And I'm not just talking about project delivery here. I'm just talking in general about AI. But this is kind of like also what the big three cloud providers, like OpenAI, is a bit different, because they don't do direct sales of an agent, right? They're just like, here's an API, build what you want. And so it's more like OpenAI's clients will have the same thing, right? But like Amazon, Google, Microsoft kind of all said it on their earnings call, where it's like it's taking a while, not because of the technology, and not because it's a bubble that's popping, but it's just because this is technology adoption curves all over again, right? Think of, I don't know, I'm going to use a very stupid example here, but like CAD, right? How long did it take everybody to switch to CAD rather than drawing stuff manually? Right?
Yeah.
And we're talking about that kind of switchover. So that's a difficult, long process. And it's something that the market, I thought, would understand. That, like, you know, there's also an upfront bootstrap to all of this, which is like, you've got to build the data centers, you've got to train the better models, you've got to design the products that use these models, and then you've got to figure out how those products are going to get used so they become useful, right? And then you have something that really generates a huge amount of economic value. That stuff takes time. That's my opinion on this. I don't think we have a bubble. Of course, like, I'm biased in saying this, but I don't think we have a bubble. I don't think, or like, I don't think we're like, .com style problems, right? And like, if you think about it, like, that's actually what happened with the .com bubble. Like, everybody's like, this technology is going to change the way we do everything. Look at today. It did, right? I want to say like 90% of our economies run online now. So they weren't wrong. They were just early.
Yeah.
And they had this like massive expectation that everything was going to take off immediately. Like, stuff takes time because people.
Yeah. I mean, just looking at some stats here, the iPhone, right, that everyone knows, they launched in 2007, and they were only, I say only, the number one selling mobile phone, by the end of 2010.
Took
Right?
3 years.
3 years. And that was in the US.
It took the iPhone 3G, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, it does take time, and it's for me, I guess. I think you're right that the hype is still there, right? I think it is still there. It then becomes, okay, what's the use case? And you mentioned there, OpenAI with API calls, etc. Do with it what you want, type thing. And you do then need a specific skill set to harness the capability of it. Are we seeing then that there's actually a bit of a lag with people upskilling themselves? Is that potentially what's going on here, where it potentially feels like it's not a lull, it's just that the curve, if you will, of interest has waned? It's almost normalized in a sense when I speak to people.
I think it comes from two sides, right? You have like people upskilling themselves, like, and actually, like, it really helps if you translate this into early internet days, right? 95 to 2002, where like you needed some technical skill, right? And it was a little bit ugly, a little bit slow. Sometimes stuff didn't work, and when it didn't work, you really didn't know how to fix it. So there was some upskilling, but the majority of the work was actually done by the technology becoming more and more usable, not very rapidly, but like over time, right? And those that upskilled eventually became experts, right? So like those are the people that became developers, for example, right? Like out of nowhere, right?
Yes.
Like someone who wanted to sell shoes online, who all of a sudden had to build a website, eventually became a developer, and they're like, oh, I actually like development, so I'm just going to be a developer. I don't know, something like that, right? I think there's one of the few companies that did the .com, like called the .com boom, if you want to call it, stuck around and got it right is Amazon, right? They had that vision from the beginning. It was like, just buy anything, and when you buy stuff, you buy it on Amazon. And like, that's actually what ended up happening, right? But you need incredible amounts of patience. You need to find a starting point that's going to keep you profitable throughout all of that, so that you can actually survive it, right? Because like at some point, people are going to stop funding you as well. Otherwise, right? And why are they going to stop funding you? Well, impatience, right? And venture capital is even more impatient than public markets in some cases, right? Like you do 2, 3, 4 rounds of funding, and they're like, okay, where's this rocket ship takeoff going to the moon, quadrillion-dollar company outcome that we expected to happen in 3 years. And I'm like, wow, Apple took 20 years to get to their iPhone moment.
Yeah.
Amazon arguably took off very early, but to become the Amazon we know today took forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also, as you're chatting there, it got me thinking about how AI will um, reach most of us. And Greg mentioned gas before. We know SaaS is currently software
Governance as a service, right?
Yeah, we know software as a service is a thing today. Do you see AI being delivered in not for long? Okay, let's go down that rabbit hole.
Okay.
Because how will AI be delivered to us as a product?
I think we've chatted about this at some point, but maybe this is time for an updated
Your updated
thought,
view.
right? I have, I can't remember the book. I read this analogy in a book, which is if you want people to get on your bus, you don't just drive the bus around without stopping, ringing a bell, and hoping people jump on, right? Doesn't matter how luxurious the bus is. It doesn't matter how close to the destination it goes. You have to actually go to the bus stop where people are and pick them up, right? Which is a great way of thinking in terms of how do you get traction with things and how do you persuade people that to join your cause in a sense, right? So and this is what I spend some time thinking about. I think SaaS is going to die for a couple of reasons. One of them is that we've all had enough of having to log into a million different things. I don't know how much stuff that you have to log into on a given day, but it's going to be more than 10.
Yeah, that's
right?
irritating.
And that's all of us. And we're kind of just sick of it, right? Because I have this reaction deep in my gut whenever very stupid example, but someone says, hey, here's a new app for managing your expenses and your reimbursement claims. I'm like, not another one, right? And it's just continuous. So there's definitely a certain amount of SaaS fatigue, and kind of all had enough. And why is that? Because doing things in that way is a lot of friction. So I don't know how you check your weather, but for me, having to get my phone out, unlock it, look at the weather widget, lock my phone, put it back in my pocket is significantly more effort than just asking my other assistants that are available in the room, right? Which ironically I have one in the room, so I can't mention it.
You could be on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. I only just say, Barry, what's the weather like, right? So that it'd be weird if it responds, but so that I don't trigger it. But and why? Because that's where my bus stop is, right? How do humans interact? They talk, they write emails for the most, instant messaging. That's why this is incredibly baffling, right? Pretty much every construction company in the world now, kind of, in one way or another, uses Teams, right? Or the majority of them. Let's just say everyone to keep it simple. Despite that, right, and the fact that you have a Teams app on your phone and you can do instant messaging in Teams, people will still do stuff on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Why? It's the same exact process. Because in your head, it's less friction.
Yes.
So, and this is where if you sprinkle a little bit of time on top of AI development today and say where are we going in 2 years, right? Where we're going is that AI is going to have that interface, right? Instead of having to log in to design a thing and then have to click on file, export, save as, and then go to my email client and start typing an email and click attach and select the file, all of that, I can literally just send a voice note to whatever, Copilot, and say like, I want you to go and call this tool to design this thing and then send me the design in an email. Right? So ironically, the thing that's going to become more important than it is today, which is really annoying in a sense, because I hope everybody wants it to die and it just keeps becoming more and more important, is email. Right?
Yes, yes. The amount of emails I get is phenomenal. I just want to stick on with the interface side of things, with having to log into an app and things like that, going to voice. Do you think we'll ever get away from humans wanting to be able to see something? Because we're all on our phones right now, and yes, in our homes, you have things like Alexa, Siri, Google Assistant, whatever it is, and yet out, I guess, in the workplace, or if you're walking around, you may not use that. You want to have a phone, and you need to see something. So is that reducing friction, but taking us to a place where we're unfamiliar with, where we're just talking to air effectively?
Well, no, like, I mean, visual interfaces were kind of an answer to the fact that, humans want to see stuff. Yeah, absolutely, right? There's no reason why you can't do video calls.
Yeah.
Where the AI will show you the stuff that you're interested in. If we go back to like the mundane email interface, this is where it gets crazy, right? Like Claude generates UI right now, right? There's no reason that it can't just send you a UI in an email specific for the thing that you asked, if that's the case, right? Like if you say like, I want to see how this thing plays out over time, then your response email could contain a completely interactive chart, right? There's no reason to remove the interactivity there. It's just that like this whole like we're gonna design a platform and you log into it and the platform is the thing where you do all the things. It's gonna go away, and the platform really is like the back end that powers all of it. And then your interfaces are just going to be the things that you use every day anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure Outlook actually has a audio option where you don't have to type, where you can talk to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, like we're seeing this, like Gemini has a, ChatGPT has a. I don't know. I literally don't know about Copilot because we don't use Teams and we don't use Copilot. But
yeah,
I mean, I'd be very surprised if it doesn't. Right? I have a voice mode.
Yeah. So okay. So to bring it back to the SaaS topic, then. So the key issue you're seeing with SaaS is the multiple logins.
It's the fatigue, right? It's the friction of it. It's the fact that you're going to something that you have to do the work.
So are we saying that they'll still exist, but we'll have a layer of something that interacts with them instead of us for all of these different SaaS products? Or are we saying SaaS as we know it is going to completely change?
Both is my opinion. So like for lack of a better word, the data processes will still exist, right? The thing that's going to go away is the user interface. So like the software as a service thing, right, is going to go away. So I don't know, let's get closer to home, right? Let's get closer to home and let's say like Procore, right? And I know that like, probably most of our audience is in the UK and not a lot of people use Procore, but one of the cool things about Procore is that it organizes all the things on your projects, right? The way I see that evolving is that, right now you have to log into Procore and there's like different sections to it, and you kind of have to like know where to click to look for different things and create things, and like this is like where you manage your RFIs and all these things, and like there's like, there's a spreadsheet integration here, there's this thing there, and it's great. It's a product that a lot of people use and it solves a problem, but, and this is the thing, right?
It also creates a problem.
Well, it does. I mean, maybe, but like, I don't think. I think Procore definitely solves way more problems than it creates, right? Like by orders of magnitude. But right now, you need to have a Procore user, right? So your project director might say, "Hey, we've got an RFI coming in, and we want to set up an EOT or whatever else, right?" Then you have someone like, goes to Procore, finds stuff, puts things together, creates the responses, all of that, right? In the future, you just need the project director's request, right? And the project director says, like, this is what I want. And literally, like, it's a project director, so they're going to get on the phone and shout at someone or something. So just have a 1-800 Procore that the project director calls and shouts at it, and it knows what the project director wants and runs an agent that does that, right? And that agent might actually call on other people. I'm not saying that agent's going to completely replace people, but the interface is different, right? Because then that agent behaves as a team member, where then it's like, oh, I need to know about this detail about the contract from Johnny because I don't have information, but I've got Johnny's contacts because they're in Procore, and so I'm just going to send them a message, right? I'll send him a message on Teams, and Johnny's going to say, oh, no, it's this thing, it's not that thing. You get the information back, and you continue compiling it, right? And then you send the RFI to someone to review. It's like, I've got to send this to the project director. Can you have a look? They say, yeah, this is good. No, change this. No, change that. Finish it. Send it back. And send it to the project director, right? In all of that process, Procore.com in a browser has never been touched. It will probably still exist because you have to upload files somewhere. Even though you probably just forward files via email, right? Which is what most people do anyway to each other. Just email stuff to assistant or upload at Procore.com, right? Yeah. And I don't want to speculate on Procore's future vision, but it's something that we probably understand better than talking in abstract. Yes, that's where I think this is going. Right?
I think it's a great example.
So the company will still be there. The process and the workflow will still be there. The outcome will be the same, but the way we interface it will be way less friction and way less annoying.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way or example to use for those listening. Particularly as we say, we believe that most of our audience is in the project space. So, and if you haven't heard of Procore, they are pretty massive as well. Disclaimer: this podcast has no affiliation with them, or by any means.
Got a couple of friends there.
Yeah,
that's basically it. Yeah,
I got a couple of friends there as well, and they do some great things.
But if they want product advisory, we charge what, £500 a minute?
Yeah, exactly. Something
like dollars, right? They're in the US. $500 a minute. You okay with that?
They don't sponsor the podcast, but maybe they should.
Oh yeah. I like nice things. So if anybody at Procore's listening, sponsorship is up for grabs.
Yes, exactly. You could be our first and main. You could get the platinum spot.
Yeah.
No, we jest, and we joke, but no, it's great that we are sharing what's happening out there, because
I want to know your opinion, because we have this very unbalanced setup where you ask me a lot of questions and I make stuff up on the go a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we get called out on it. Shout out to Lawrence. But I want to know what you think as well.
On what particular strand?
Well, on where I guess where are we going with user interfaces? And maybe I've anchored you a bit too much on this, but maybe you have something that you disagree with me on, and you think, wait, no, this bit is still important, or this bit is not going to happen at all.
Probably at the dismay of listeners, I do tend to agree with you. The reason being is I've chatted on our, if we can call it our sister or cousin podcast, Project Chatter, with a number of different guests, where we actually do have guests on. You've been one in the past as well, Al, where I've previously said, and this was a couple of years ago, that we've got the likes of voice assistants in our homes that listen constantly, right? And that it's just within that context we're comfortable talking to the air and getting a response. As you say, how do I ask? Well, if I don't have that voice assistant around, I use my phone. But if I'm at home, I go, Alexa, what's the weather?
Yeah.
You know, what's, and then it asks me, do you want to know tomorrow as well in the next few days? And you interact with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Give me a news briefing. Okay, it gives me all the highlights of, what's the top things in the news. I don't have to switch on a TV. I don't have to look on my phone. It's very, very easy.
I'm very excited, by the way, about this rumor that Alexa's going to be powered by Claude soon.
Really? Ooh, do tell.
I mean, it makes sense, right? Like,
yeah.
Amazon are probably like. I mean, a lot of people have actually invested in Anthropic. Google have invested in Anthropic. Amazon have invested in Anthropic. I think Microsoft is in there. Nvidia's in there for sure. There's like, and this is one of the things that I like about the AI ecosystem right now is that the big players are also supporting the emerging. I mean, you can't really call Anthropic an emerging player anymore, but they were there from the beginning supporting them, right? Even though Google was working on Gemini. Like, Amazon were not really building their own big model, but that's how, Microsoft came to invest in OpenAI, right? There was like let's build an ecosystem. And I think Google, Amazon, Microsoft understand that their job is to be the cloud provider, right? So, like, for them, like, anything that drives traffic towards the GPUs that they host rather than the ones that are hosted next door is basically what they're aiming for, right? But I love the possibility of like actually having Alexa powered by Claude, because like Alexa, right, and the Google Assistant in your Google Home, which is not powered by Gemini yet. I think actually they're working on it, or maybe they've released something. I'm not entirely sure. Those are going to change fundamentally in lots of cool ways, right? Like, and I think the user experience is only really starting to get defined. This is where I am. I want to hear your opinion about bubble and adoption as well, because like you have a very different point of view. Like, maybe not point of view, vantage point than I do, right? Like, my vantage point is I either talk to people that are building AI or doing ML research, so have like heavily drank the Kool-Aid. I talk to people that want to be customers, so have drunk at least some Kool-Aid. Our BDRs also have to talk to people that don't want to know about it and just hang up the phone. So they get a little bit more perspective, and sometimes I have to talk to someone who's a little bit more skeptical, but it's not very frequent. So definitely my thermometer is in the hot pocket of the water.
Yes. So yes. Okay. So let me give you a view of my world and the people I speak to. So when I talk to a lot of various clients that we engage with, there is a definite pickup and maturity and interest in technology. I won't say AI, in technology, because it's not all AI related. Because there is a whole host of things you need to do for AI to be effective, right? And not all organizations are ready for that. And so we're seeing more and more that organizations are open to getting set up in the right way, where they're intrigued at, okay, where do I start? They've tried a few different people, by the way, and it's worked to varying degrees. Some have gone blindly, others have got strategies in place. But for the most part, I see an upward turn in organizations getting ready to make use of AI, if that makes sense. Not the full-on adoption just yet, but in order for it to work properly, that you need certain building blocks in place, let's say. And yes, you can apply AI in isolation. Like, you can chuck a large language model and you can make API calls and have an internal chat GPT if you want. That's a form. But what we're talking about here is improving project delivery. So integrating everything, all of their different sources, all of their different applications, and ensuring that we can apply technology into what we've coined an integrated source of truth rather than single source. Because and I hate selling, as you know, but we've coined, I think we've coined it, because I haven't heard it anywhere else, an integrated source of truth rather than single source, because our belief is that there isn't a single source of truth. You have multiple sources of truth which have their context, and you need to integrate those sources in order to give you the context and the contrast through the use of technology to give you more informed insights so you can make those decisions. If you can automate a lot of that and make it quicker, then that's utopia. Ideally, you have some that are further up the maturity curve and they see utopia, where if you've got the built environment, you have a full live digital twin with information from projects constantly being fed into this singular environment, this integrated environment, and you can make decisions on the spot. Now we're some way off from that. So that's my view of the world in terms of projects specifically. Now, if I lift that up and I talk about general user adoption on AI, that's where my view of, I think it's waned a little bit, because I talk to my friends who aren't in the industry I'm in, and some months ago everyone's talking about ChatGPT, right? Everyone's talking about large language models, and now it's sort of waned a little bit, like the honeymoon period's over, generally speaking. But I do think there's probably a couple of reasons. I think there will be an uptake again. I think it's people normalizing, understanding what it means, what it does. Because in the beginning, when you type something in, oh, look how cool this is. It's generated an image for me based on what I've asked it to do, right? Look, I've chucked in a massive document and it summarized it for me. I didn't have to read it. Now that's normal for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so because it's normalized, people are going, okay, that's just part of what it does now. So what's next? And coming back to the user interfaces, I think it'll take some going to have a personal device, let's say, where you can just talk to it and it only responds to your voice. The technology exists today to do it, but how comfortable are we where you're walking up, let's say London Bridge, and you see people just talking to themselves, going, "Hey, Jacob," let's say that's what you've called your personal assistant, book me a meeting with so and so and make sure that the cab picks me up at this time, and dinner later at this, and put this in my diary, etc., etc.
I mean, like, we already do that though, right? It's just that we're on the phone when we do that.
Yes.
So, but that did take a while, right? Like, if you remember, like, there'd be people walking around with Bluetooth headsets and we'd look at them as if they were aliens, right? And then there was like that stereotype of like the guy with the Bluetooth headset and the reflective sunglasses, and probably owns a BMW M3 or something, right? But after we got past that, like, it's now completely normal for someone to be walking along the street on a phone call with the headphones on, right?
Yeah.
So I don't see why not. The thing that I don't think will take off, and like a lot of organizations keep trying this, and I think it's just not going to happen, is vision. What I mean by vision is like Google Glass, or wearing a camera here, anything that's recording other people, right? Because people don't like being recorded by others. They're like, just, you have no rights to record what I'm doing. So that's the bit I think it's probably not going to take off, because it makes people too uncomfortable.
So you say that, but isn't London, or it was, the most watched city in the world, right? There's cameras
It is,
everywhere.
right? But who's watching? Not other people. It's the City of London Police, or TfL, or let's say the government, in a very loose definition of it, right? Or the man, right? And you get no choice. You get no say in that, right? If it's another civilian who's just walking around filming people, you're like, nah, keep me out of it, right? And you have the right to go out and say that. The government gives you no choice. And I think like we all kind of know that we're being recorded, and we also like gut feeling sort of dislike that, right? But we know that we don't get given a choice.
Yeah, Big Brother
Like
is
for
watching.
public safety. And like I think, we're way beyond the amount of recording that you need for public safety.
Yes, indeed. Look, it's been a fascinating chat and discussion with you. Any other thoughts? We're heading towards the end of this one that you want to put on the table before we sign off.
Thoughts that I want to put on the table. Yeah, I think like the main ingredient here is time. We're at the GeoCities stage of the AI boom. Like,
Okay.
if you're as old as I am, you probably remember GeoCities, where everybody went and made their own like horrible looking website and sent their friends to it, and it probably had an in construction GIF because that's what you would put everywhere at the time. And like, we're at that stage, right? So like, it makes sense that people would stop paying for ChatGPT. And I think OpenAI knows this, right? Because like, chatbots are not the answer. They're the demo of how much can get done, right? So, I can put a document in here and get it to summarize it for me so I don't have to read it, is a tech demo of what you could do, right? And it's cool, and you can, like, if you want to like manually crank the handle, you can use ChatGPT to get some competitive advantage. But really the answer here is that like, wherever that document appears in the first place, you have a pop-up bubble that summarizes it for you, that shows up automatically, right? And then you're like, I'm interested in this section. Click, takes you to the section, and so you can actually read the whole section if you want to.
Yes, I think it's a good note to kind of finish off on there, because I think we've said it before. When it comes to AI and tech, be curious, be careful, but I think also be patient with it as well. It is still early days, although we want instant gratification these days. But I do also think that as generations come, we will see a shift. It's a generational thing.
It's also a generative thing. Sorry.
Generative and generation. Yeah. Gen AI is generation AI. But no, I think if you look at it, right, there's certain generations that are better at adopting and adapting to technology, including AI, than others. And there's some of us that were around before the mobile phone, and had to learn to use it and grow up with it. And then there's the generation that's never known a time without the mobile phone. I do hear that the tape is making a comeback, and you're going to have to start teaching your kids, if you have kids, what a pencil and a tape means, how to use the two. But we won't go down that rabbit hole of Walkmans and all of that back in the day. But cool era. But yeah, lots to ponder, lots to think about, Al. Thank you again for being intriguing. And the reason I do a lot of asking, you do a lot of answering and sharing, is because you are the ideas man. And this is.
But I want to turn it around. I want to hear from you.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great you put me on the spot as well. I think it's good we have perspective as well. So we'll try and get Greg back on the pod. Val will always be on the next one.
Yes,
as we keep saying.
I think we've come to that conclusion. It's fine.
Absolutely. So shout out to both of them, and shout out to you, listeners. Thank you very much for being on this journey with us. Thank you very much for joining us for another episode. We appreciate your time. Hope you've enjoyed that. If not, let us know. As always, take care and bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.